Welcome to the Didi Lital Show. Advice, thoughts, and stories from a married couple on cybersecurity, technology, and life in general. Now here are your hosts, Didi and Lital.
Hello and welcome to the Didi and Lital Show. It's another week. What's up, Didi?
Hockey is giving me a chubby. Really, we got five games worth of hockey in 4 games. 3 games went into overtime. Marshy scored a shitload of goals. This is like the best series ever, and there's no downside. McDavid wins. McDavid gets a cup. The guy's unfucking real. If Marshy gets a cup, they basically are forced not to put him in the Hall of Fame.
When is the next game?
I think tomorrow.
And if Florida wins, they take it?
No. We had 4 games so far, and the series is tied. It goes to 7. It's gonna be good. This has been the best. This is like how playoff hockey should be. When the 2 best teams in the league play each other and are at each other's throats, it's like everything you want from hockey. I think it's like the complete opposite of the NBA finals, where 2 teams that nobody gives a fuck about are playing with no market and no nothing. And I even didn't look at a single game for the NBA one. The NHL one, people that don't give a fuck about hockey are watching this series. It's like unbelievable. Basically everybody's watching, and even though that nobody was expecting this, it's like everybody is watching this because it's so entertaining and so good.
Awesome.
So yes,
nice.
Also watch the Killers live. They are
you were back from Cisco Live.
Cisco Live in San Diego. San Diego is like
sorry, what songs the Killers sing? Which one?
So
not recognizing. Producer Dave is gonna give me the best of.
So the most recognizable is Mr. Brightside, I would guess. Then Human is also Vered. My sister made me listen to Human, which I really liked, and that's how I started liking them. And then there's no sporting event in the US or spinning class that will not play this.
Okay, now I know. I'm bad in recognizing.
Yes, it's awesome.
Who is singing what song? Okay, cool.
And they also did a very good cover of Go Your Own Way. I was telling producer Dave that the 3
Fleetwood Mac.
The 3 best divorces in our lifetime were ABBA, and that's 2, and Fleetwood Mac, Stevie Nicks, and actually there's 4 divorces, because I think Christy also divorced the guy, the keyboard guy. So
from Fleetwood Mac.
Fleetwood Mac?
Yeah, both of them got divorced. So
yeah, I think you're right.
Yes, she claimed that Make Loving Fun was about a dog, and it turned out to be that she was cheating with the roadie or something like that. So those divorces, wow! Think of all the awesome music that those divorces gave us.
Divorce is better than love.
Exactly.
Love, in terms of
I always like to say,
spirit.
Billy Joel used to write really gritty, soulful songs, and then he got married to Christy Brinkley. He's writing schlock like Uptown Girl, Look
exactly.
at Me in Love.
Of course, because she's beautiful.
Again, if he wakes up in the morning next to Christy Brinkley and says, "I'm this short dude,"
I know, luckiest man alive, huh?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Are they still married?
No, they haven't been married in a while, but he also had a relationship with Elle Macpherson, so you know.
Holy shit! Really?
Figure that one out. Yeah.
She's even more beautiful.
Yep.
Oh wow.
Yes, clearly.
You had the thing going in the early 90s.
Yep.
With all those supermodels.
Yep. Clearly, some of these guys know what they're doing. So, awesome music. San Diego itself looks beautiful. The Marine Museum is unbelievable. There's a whole bunch of stuff. But it turned into San Francisco. You can't walk around with us.
That's very depressing.
Without stepping in human shit everywhere.
Well, at least they didn't have the riots over there that LA had this week.
That's because they're too stoned. They're just way too stoned to do anything. You walk in a cloud of weed. It's like massive cloud of weed in in the bay. So, and I did karaoke, which is also fun.
What did you sing?
So I did this because my partner that I went to karaoke with, she didn't know The Killer, so we sang Mr. Brightside.
To prepare yourself for the show?
To prepare ourselves for the show. And she made me sing in Love Story by Taylor Swift.
Oh, no.
Yes, the funny thing is, thanks to Leah, who's now gone, I know all the words by heart. I didn't even need to look at the teleprompter.
No, it's thanks to all those Peloton classes.
Also true.
You have
yes.
the Swifties.
The Swifties are everywhere. And Taylor Swift was
running teachers. Yes.
Was at the Florida game yesterday, and clearly there was a lot of excitement. So.
Okay. Well, we wanted to bring a topic today that
one more thing.
Okay.
My ego right now is like, whoosh, because
it's always.
No, even more.
Why?
I'll be more intolerable than usual, because everybody stopped us and told us how awesome our product is, which is something I shared with the team. It's like I was in 7 customer meetings. Every single one said that this changed the trajectory of their identity guide program path.
How many dual customers now have OAT?
CII, Cisco Identity Intelligence.
Okay, sorry.
Over 2,000.
Okay, nice.
Yes, impact. I love impact.
That's nice.
Yes.
Awesome.
Big ego.
Great job. What are we discussing today? We said we're gonna
talk about VC-backed and non-VC-backed companies.
So basically, for people starting up the companies, kind of like thinking what way to go, you might be doing it at a certain point in the future.
No, I'm VC-backed from now on.
For life?
For life.
Okay, so let's talk about.
But that's because.
Why?
But that's because at least the VCs I'm in contact with, the best partners I've had. And by the way, did I tell you that
so VC back versus bootstrapping?
That John from YL, I met him at the Identiverse, and he's coming our way. So yes, there's some.
He's not with YL anymore.
He's not from YL anymore. Yes. Yeah. So the thing is that some of let's explain first what is Bootstrap and what is VC backed.
Okay.
And then the stages, and then the differences between them. So when I got out of the army, I joined a company called Multicon. That was a bootstrap-based company. 2 partners started reselling software for IBM, MQ Series, Kix, a few other things, and reselling and supporting what we now call VAR, value-added reseller. Which means that they don't just sell the product, they also give
support, implementation, whatever.
Exactly. And a lot of times companies in those VARs are able, especially with the smaller partners, they start building supportive products. And as they do that, a lot of times they'll accidentally step into a cool idea. And now they have money in the bank.
Coming from customers,
coming from implementations, coming from other things, and they say, you know what, let's build something on top of that. And Bootstrap means that I don't take any money from anybody. I use my own money to build something. The advantage of doing something like this is that if you step on something that is very good, and when we were very lucky to initially have a lot of traction, then we took money, we lost our path and did a whole bunch of other stuff. But initially we discovered that we built a framework to connect between mainframe products to the then nascent internet. It was like in the mid 90s, everybody wanted banks, government services, everybody wanted to have websites. and the data was in the mainframes, and you needed technology to be able to connect this. We built a framework. If we would have known today what we've known then, what we know today, we probably would have built an open source framework and then do stuff on top of that. But we built a framework to do that, and we basically were able to create massive traction. But at some point, you see that you can't market yourself. We can't branch out. Like if we wanted to sell to, we started selling to Spanish banks. We started selling to other things. We didn't have the reach.
Because you didn't have marketing, you didn't have sales program.
Exactly.
Everything, all the GTM machine.
Exactly. And the other thing is that sometimes when you're not VC backed, you will also fall into the trap of that support, and several key customers will basically hijack your roadmap, and you'll build something for specific customers. And I've seen a lot of times bootstrap companies is somebody that built a consulting company that built something for a dedicated company like Lockheed or another big provider, and then continue on that path.
Well, because they have to. The survival relies on the customer, so
Yes.
they have to listen and go do and get revenue. They have to be very short-term
Yes.
minded.
Yeah.
So I want to take one step back and even say why we thought of having this conversation. I think there is this discussion in the market at the moment that because of the change in employment, the change in AI tools, that the ability to do more with less today, it seems more realistic nowadays that you could build a company by bootstrapping it. You don't need large investment to start off a company. You don't need, the millions of dollars to go get, a seat full of, expensive software engineers. And then you may not need a huge GTM organization. You can do less with more because of AI tools. So there was, I saw a lot of threads on Twitter and discussions. Should companies go the bootstrap way, just fund themselves, don't get too hyped, go grow slowly together with the revenue that come in more responsibly. Don't spend other people's money. Go within your means and do that as the new way for a startup to be. So I think there was this point in this thread, a lot of people said, well, in the past, it might have been the way, like you're saying, for services companies and so, but because GTM is so expensive, the minute you actually want to break in the market, you need to have large capital. And unless you are a very rich person, like the bootstrapping way is very hard. The people kind of supporting bootstrapping would say, you have so much freedom. You get to listen to your customers and actually do what they want and how they want it. You control your destiny and not somebody else that becomes a seat at your board, and he is the decider. It's not basically your company anymore. So both those things, and I do think that we will see more bootstrapped companies. The question is it really more possible these days with AI tools and everything, or is it still for a software, not a service company, still very hard to bootstrap your way, and you still need to go the VC, tons of millions of dollars to break into the market and succeed?
So I think there's also another thing to I'll also list a little bit of the advantages of Bootstrapped. So the best example of a super successful bootstrap company is there's a company called Plenty of Fish. Plenty of Fish was a dating site that was built by one guy. and I think he sold the company to eHarmony for $500 million.
Isn't WhatsApp a similar story?
Yeah.
It's like 19, 29. I don't know what was the number
Yes,
of
and not VC
employees they had.
and I'd
Not
also-
VC backed.
Not VC backed.
Yeah.
And this is something that did happen a lot in the early .com era, and also happened again in the second wave of the .com era of the 2010s. That especially when Amazon kind of came up with the cloud services, people that really knew what they were doing, a very strong developer, could build something on his own, on her own, to kind of be as a standalone. And if you had enough money, I think also some of the companies that we know in the security space, some of them came up as a couple of founders, especially second-time founders, basically said, you know what?
I even think Shopify started that way.
Yes.
The story is that I think they took money from friends and families, and at least the early days.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know when was the first actual VC
The German
round
dude, we listened to the
in Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is a very interesting space, and you do control your destiny, and you do grow in a. There's no. The real thing that I like about Bootstrap is the non-equation based growth metrics. What do I mean by that? It means that you can grow at your own pace. As long as you're in the black, you can do whatever you want.
Right.
And you can hire whomever you want, and you can grow at the cadence you want. And by the way, sometimes people are very happy at staying that way. I know a company that competes with Zscaler. They have about 300 customers. All in all, very profitable, very well managed. They don't want to expand beyond. They're a lot like your dad's partner Luca, that has a boutique shop that is best at their job. They do something awesome, and they stay at that scale. So there's also, a lot of us are thinking the exit route. Some people are thinking, you know what? How about I build a business in the software space
And keep it for life.
keep it for life, make money, make good money, not expect to sell to blah blah, and run a business, which is also an acceptable path. A non-exit path in the bootstrap space is a possibility. So for people that want to stay in that business. So that's something also to consider. I think this is when you don't dilute your company, you can also make the most out of.
What I think I like about the bootstrap way from kind of the GTM perspective is that it forces you to really figure out your product market fit.
Yeah.
This illusion of you have so much money that you can grow at all cost and just, spend on huge marketing, sales operations, the things we've seen happening during the ZERT pandemic time. It was fake. A lot of companies, brought in growth without having the fundamentals of strong product market fit, strong fundamentals in terms of CAC, spending, how much it costs you to acquire a customer, how much your average deal size, and all this. When it's basically your own money, and as you say, you'll go to the reds, you'll go bankrupt, nobody's going to inject you and help you. Maybe the bank can give you a little bit of a credit line, but we all know how expensive that is. You really need to figure out what you're doing. And people need to love you. People need to, retain your services. Otherwise, you're going into the reds. So that's what I like. It's the responsibility of doing things the right way without having the rich uncle reach out to his pocket and save the day.
Yep.
Which we see so many of those companies now going the belly up or, fire sale, because they didn't go through that. They had piles of money to rely on, and guess what? they're not going to make it.
So let's explain a little bit, how do you get to the VC path? So, and by the way, this is an important part to learn about when you go down the VC path, is you need to know what you're doing. A lot of times people have a really cool idea and they go off and pitch. And sometimes somebody will listen to them, but a lot of the first-time founders care more on who gives them. They care about more of getting the money than who gives them the money. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, you want to build your dreams. So, I mean, I do think everybody would love to get the money from the top tier VCs.
I don't. I very much, like we were having this conversation with the colleges with Leah. Sometimes the top tier is just top tier by name. Very much like Harvard is now a wasted husk compared to what it was. A lot of times the named brands are no longer a named brand. What I think people need to understand is, what will the VC put, not just in terms of money. Ours were real partners. I think you met Mal. He's an amazing guy. He gave us advice. He gave us guidance. He was a partner. He's somebody that we could talk to. Glasswing, who were our partners, were real partners. Were people that were invested in us. They cared about us. They talked to us. They helped us out when we were stuck and had dilemmas. Same was true for EIP. Same is true for 406. Companies that really care about you. And sometimes the VCs, and this is something, we had Andy Alice here.
Yep.
A VC that gives their founders an asset like that, that's unbelievable. That's a company that really helps you as a first-time founder or a second-time founder find your path. So sometimes people need to think of, how do they think they want to grow? Who are the partners that they'll let into their lives? How will that be constructed? Because sometimes good partners are more valuable than the money that they give.
Right.
Because somebody
the
like
advice,
exactly,
the support,
like,
the network.
Exactly. Somebody like Greg, who helped us from 406, he knows how to sell software. And as two technical nerds, enjoying somebody that can help us think of how GTM should work. Be more careful, be less careful, spend more money, spend less money. Understand when to throw gasoline on the fire versus when to step back and think through things. Think of who should be our next hire. These are things that are very valuable. This is at least from my experience, things that are very valuable when you enter into the VC pathway.
So you're saying, if you are bootstrapping, you're kind of on your own.
Yes.
When somebody else invests in you, he helps you raise the bar.
Yes.
And he helps you with the capabilities and expertise and the know-how.
Yes.
Dealing with hundreds of companies like you.
Yep.
So it's a business advantage other than they inject money.
Rather than they inject money. And when we think of AI, by the way, AI is expensive. Every transaction you send to Bedrock costs you money. Everything that gets processed costs you money. The thing also sometimes VC will help you with is understanding the framing of, how much money do I actually need? Because sometimes people come in and say, I need 60 million. No, you don't. Sometimes, and this is a big advantage of second-time, third-time founders. When people were giving us pain about first-time founders versus second-time founders, a lot of times the not understanding how much money to take. And also understanding when not to listen to the advice. That's also an important thing, of understanding when not to listen and when to understand that this is your business.
What do you mean? Give an example.
We were debating on how many salespeople to have, not salespeople to have, things like that. Sometimes these are discussions, and what is the right type of sales to have? These are questions that right now if I'm not saying that this is wrong or right, but this is my perspective and it's good for me. I don't know if it's good for anybody else. It could be that it's not good for anybody else. But right now, you remember we were starting the beginning of the conversation of how many adopted customers there are of CII.
Right.
Still, till today, like when Lars and I go, Lars is the head of product for Duo. When Lars and I go on a call with a customer, it's much, much better than any sales guy and any sales pitch.
Of course.
I think as a next time founder, I'm not introducing sales. Maybe I'll introduce a closer. Maybe I'll introduce somebody like Gwen that can make sure that the customers actually pay us. That's, by the way, a very important thing to know, that you need to know how to not just close the deal, but also how to collect. Because everybody says, oh, the PO. The PO is not enough. You need to also get the money in the bank. So, by the way, that's something that bootstrap companies are a lot better at than a lot of VC-backed companies. A lot of VC-backed companies care more about the PO and the closing numbers than the actual making.
It's money on the paper that you show to the board versus actually in your bank.
Money that goes into your bank.
Because the
account.
money that you're making, if you're VC-backed, in the first few years, you're not breaking even. Maybe you're never breaking even. So the actual money you have in your bank that you're paying salaries is the VC money. So, of course, the PO, the money you're getting from your customer, is only an upside. At the end of the day, the salaries you're paying is from VC money versus the bootstrapped. They need the money to make salaries, to keep the lights
payroll.
on.
Yes.
So of course they care about collecting.
Well, I care about collecting all the time.
Sure.
So, but that's because that's something that you do need to learn as the second-time founder. Second-time founders, you'll see, make sure that the collection process, that they're getting the money in, not just the PO.
Okay.
And because that also is a good indication of avoidance of churn.
I agree. Going back to your point about the times and places that you should not take the advice. So take the advice with a grain of salt.
Yep.
Many of the VCs are coming out of big exits, big IPOs. The GTM advisor have been in the leader of GTM at Salesforce and, built Salesforce and then, IPO'd and made a fortune and went into VC. Awesome. They know this playbook. They have the experience. How much this is translatable to a business that is doing so-so and need a pivot and is struggling with product market fit, not always the same case.
Yep.
So yes, they've seen companies like you, but you should always know that the bias they have is about the great success they had, which is awesome. They should bring you the playbook of the amazing successes they had at Salesforce and Snowflake and Databricks and Datadog and all those kind of like great companies. But guess what? 99.9% of you startups are not going to be Snowflake and Salesforce and Databricks. You're going to be a Series B company acquired by CrowdStrike, Palo, or Cisco if you're doing well. And if you're not, you will just evaporate. And another way, you will go and be acquired by a PE. And another way is maybe you'll make it and you will be, but that's the 0.11. The point is, take it with a grain of salt, especially, I've seen this on the GTM, because GTM is very nuanced. I think VCs try to implement this one-size-fits-all playbook from the early 2000s of an SDR team, an ISR team, a closing team, an enterprise team, big kind of sales operation organization, big marketing team supporting them, all these machines. That was a playbook. That's basically the Salesforce playbook.
That's what is called the Bain model. Yeah,
it's the Bain model, exactly. And it worked until it stopped working. And nowadays, there are a lot of nuances on how to go and sell and Are you going to have an SDR? Are you going to have just, a very professional person doing the cold outreach? Somebody like Didi, that is actually the co-founder that is doing it, and he's the SDR. So you need to figure out what works for you and not necessarily pick up the playbook of the VCs.
So this is something that it's actually really interesting what you're mentioning, because this is not what I've seen. And also there's another thing that it's a little bit of an interesting dilemma. One of the interesting dilemmas is when you're not VC backed, it's really hard to get Amazon or Microsoft to partner with you and give you AWS and Microsoft credits. Right now, if you're building a new startup and you're not trying to run on AWS or Microsoft credits for initial, you'll be very limited on how you can architect your solution.
Why wouldn't they give it to a bootstrap company?
I've not seen it happening. I actually have seen it.
Is it that they just need to read in Crunchbase that you raised $7 million in your seed round to give you some credits?
I don't know.
To get into the startup package?
I've seen only people, I've not seen bootstrap companies get that. Well, I've seen a lot of VC companies get that, and also sometimes
I would fake the PR, seriously.
I don't know. The VCs also have relationships with those vendors.
Oh, absolutely.
So you can get to that path. And I have seen a lot of VC companies that do recommend right now selling through the marketplace, and actually help you build the playbook to sell through the marketplace.
Awesome.
By the way, selling, if you are selling, if you take nothing out of this episode, selling through Snowflake Marketplace, selling through Amazon Marketplace, amazing strategy. We consume stuff from IP Info through the Amazon Marketplace, solved a million of their problems and a lot of our problems. Selling other stuff like
it's awesome way to procure also.
Yes.
People have a bunch of credits.
Also,
that
sometimes you're already inside the path. Remember that we were talking about the getting the money out of the system. If you're able to get charged based on Snowflake credits, this is amazing because you get just a chunk. They are very good at collecting. If you get through Amazon is very good at collecting.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to change that mechanism.
Yep, true.
So that's another thing.
That's actually, so you're saying it's how to get on it, but actually if you are bootstrapped and you manage to get on it, that might save you some cost and make your path easier because you're just selling through marketplace.
Yes, but it is harder to get there without an experienced somebody that knows how to get to that path.
Yeah. I mean, there are all kinds of companies, service providers that actually help you get on a marketplace. They're pretty expensive, but you can get services like that.
Yes. So after I explained how all the awesomeness of VC.
So you're saying if ever you're going back to create your own company, probably the VC route.
Yes, but I also will explain why, in what world would somebody like Dennis or me, or Dennis and me, build a bootstrap company. So if you have two technical founders that are very capable builders, you sit down for 6 months and code, you can end up with an open source framework, and that's something that I have seen to be successful. You build an open source framework and you let it loose and it becomes very popular. If you do something like that, building a business on top of that can work in Bootstrap.
Because basically it sells itself. You don't need, because you put it on as an open source, you don't need the GTM investment.
You already see the uptake. You already see the uptake into the business, like the 10-gen model that built Mongo, was in the wild. Everybody was using it. Now you build something like a Red Hat. You build something like on top of that.
Mm-hmm.
The business, the services, and of course, eventually create features like Elastic of dedicated services on top of that. That's something that if you have a couple of very capable developers, it's unbelievable how much you can code if you just sit down and code. And that's something most people kind of forget.
Cool.
Cool.
Anything to add?
Yeah. I think the other thing to remember is that people get scared to be on their own. And people like to have a blueprint. The VC path is a lot more blueprinted, which really helps in the decision-making process.
It's like having a mom and dad also.
Exactly. And
Somebody is responsible.
a responsible adult sometimes.
It's helpful.
Yes, it is.
Awesome. Well, whatever road you take, may the power be with you.
Yeah. Cool. Awesome.
We hope you like the show. The Didi and Lital Show is a weekly podcast. Please rate and review us wherever you're getting the podcast. If you'd like to be on the show, like Aaron was in a previous episode, just let us know and come on the show. We'd love to have you here. Until then, next week, see you.
See you. Bye.
Bye.